time for the biggest non-league football debate in the country. Search official BOTN and get involved with tonight's show.
Hello and welcome to the non-league debate. My name is Charlotte Richardson, and for this week's episode I am delighted to be joined by Grays Athletic manager Jim Cooper and David Richardson from the non-league paper. And gents, within the blink of the eye, the season's almost drawn to a conclusion. It's had everything we could have possibly wanted, so much drama, from plenty of content for us to discuss on the sofa. But Jim, if I take you back to the start of the season, when we were picking our predictions for title contenders, you put your money on Leyton Orient to win the National League title, which they did on Saturday, a 0-0 draw enough for them. And what a season for Orient fans to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, clarify that when you say I put my money on, I'm obviously involved in football. I'm not allowed to bet, am I? But yeah, no. 100% I said all the way through that Leyton Orient would just about do it. I didn't think it would be as close as what it was, but I'm delighted for that club. I mean, it's like the phoenix from the flames, for want of a better word, isn't it? And I'm delighted for them, the supporters, and non-league football, to be fair.
And in previous campaigns, sometimes title runners run ahead with it and get a great points tally, whereas Solihull Moors and Salford City, they pushed Orient all the way, which tees up a really exciting playoff contest. And if you had to put your money or flip a coin, who would you be going for to win that playoff contest?
Yeah, well, firstly, like you say, the title race was probably the best one we've had for years. Yeah, hats off to Solihull being in there. I think most of us expected Salford. I thought Salford would win the league, and even with their run-in, I thought they'd do it, but Orient hung in there. As for playoffs, it's really tough to call. I think you can sort of make a case for everyone, really. I would still say Salford, I think, just because of the players that they have there and how solid they've been defensively over the last sort of month or so. But again, you look at the likes of AFC Fylde, who can, on their day, can just blow teams away with the goal power that they've got. Wrexham are similar to Salford, who have a solid defence, and you can't count out sort of Harrogate and Measley have been up there for a lot of the season, really. So again, I think there's going to be some really close games. For me, I think Salford will do it, but I think, like you say, you can almost flip a coin and one of them could potentially.
I think the pressure on Salford though to get it done must be huge for them. Everything is, like you said, a lot of expectations throughout the season, the investment that's gone on down the club, which we've discussed before, which is magnificent for them and non-league football. But I'm going to, have a suspicion. I think that Solihull Moors will do it, because I think at the start of the season it's a case of no one expected them to be there. I think they can relax and take it and think, do you know what, we're here, let's go out and enjoy it, and just seems to be less pressure on them. Yeah. So, I mean, regardless, like you said, you could throw a blanket on any of them, and they're all very close, aren't they? Yeah,
I spoke to Simon Weaver last week about getting into the playoffs, and he said basically, we're just going to have a free hit it, and there's no pressure on us. He said there'd been pressure on them in the last couple of months, as they're having a little bit of a tough time, and we're beginning to slip out of it. But now it's sort of shackles are off, really. There's no pressure, and they can just go out and have a go, and it might play into their hands. But we'll have to see. I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks and seeing how it's going to happen.
And that word pressure is so key, because Jim, from a management point of view, obviously you're wanting to keep if you're the managers of these teams in these playoff contests, not only in the National League, North, South and the Bostik League as well, you're wanting to keep a calm, cool, collective bunch of players, but also magnifying and optimising that kind of adrenaline excitement to get you over the line. What are the kind of methods do you think those managers will be employing?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's a very, very fine balance as to what you try to say to the players, because really you want to take the pressure away from them and then just get out, tell them to go and play their normal game, and don't think too much about it, just go and play. But from a manager's point of view, you really could utilise the fact that the opportunity to play Football League next season is an opportunity that may not come along too often for you. So you've got to weigh that up, and the better managers will probably get that bang on. I mean, I lost 5 playoffs finals, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. But it's a very fine balance. But I think the better manager will get the better out of the players if they shield them from all the pressure from that side of it.
And David, the front page of the non-league paper was covered in scenes of celebration, but you also highlighted in the paper as well the rising crowds and attendances. Orient not only topped the league, but topped the average attendances for the season as well, over 8,000 there on Saturday. So not only is it a fantastic time for the National League, but non-league football as well is really on the rise.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see. I mean, like I mentioned, Leyton Orient, Stockport have had massive crowds. Wrexham this season as well. Crowds have come back. And even if you look down to sort of step 5 and 6, Morpeth have been having some great crowds. I think they're a record there, 800 people. Non-league is getting stronger, and I think you always see that come out towards the end of the season with the big games. Particularly over the bank holiday weekends when people have more time to get out and get to a game. And yeah, like you say, it's great to see, and it just shows the interest in non-league. And I think more people are turning to non-league. And we have seen some really good games this season. And the playoffs will certainly bring more. So hopefully there'll be more crowd numbers continue to go up.
And Jim, also kind of alongside the rise in crowds, we're also seeing a rise in the competition within the National League, comparing last year's contest where Macclesfield kind of ran away with the title in the end. I was kind of doing a little bit of analysis, and Tranmere, who came second last year, would have finished 5th this year with just one more point than AFC Fylde. Do you think that's an indication of the way that these National League sides are professionalising season upon season? They're getting better on and off the pitch with their developments as well, which, if we're going to look ahead to next season, probably makes next year's campaign even more exciting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that that goes in hand also with the rise in attendance figures. I think people are seeing that it's a lot more professional. Your point about how close it was this year. I mean, I think that every show that we've discussed the National League on, it's we've all had varying or contrasting views, apart from me, of course, about who's going to end up winning the league this year, because it's been so tight. And and credit to all of those sides that have contributed to what is a magnificent season for the National League this year.
And David, arguably it is probably one of the most competitive leagues in the English football pyramid.
Yeah, I think so. As sort of Jim touched on there, the amount of full-time teams in the division, it's actually more difficult now to name the part-time teams. I think Maidenhead were in there, I think Sutton, although they train in the day. Likes of Braintree obviously got relegated. It just goes to show sort of the strength of the division. And so many of these teams have played in the Football League. You look at Yeovil, who are coming back down for next season, potentially Notts County as well. It just seems to get stronger, and you have clubs like Salford who are coming up with the backing, and Fylde. And then you look lower down and you've got sort of likes of Dorking now at step 2 and other clubs who are really trying to push up the pyramid. It is only going to get stronger at the top, and obviously when you've only got 2 teams being promoted from that division, there is a bit of a bottleneck. Like you said, I think maybe we've seen in this title race just how competitive the division is. It was interesting how you said that Tranmere only had 1 more point and would have finished 5th, because that just goes to show the strength and how it's moved on, really.
And these big clubs are obviously attracting big players, the big crowds. It's all very positive for the outlook of non-league football. And as most of the business end of the season is done, if we were to look back and pick a player of the season, who's caught your eye in the National League, Jim?
So for me, it wouldn't be controversial, but Alfie Rutherford, who plays for Havant and Waterlooville, he has scored 15 out of their 62 league goals this year. And bearing in mind he's in a side that has been struggling all season, to score 1/4 almost of your side's league goals is quite an achievement. And I remember him when he was at Bognor, and looking back then, I thought this guy is a very, very good player. And it's a shame that haven't been relegated, and players of his ilk and quality are going to drop down unless they're picked up by others. But he would get my vote purely on the fact of what he's achieved in that particular side.
And David, the back of the net and non-league paper will be coming together soon to put together the team of the year. But if you could give us a bit of an indication of a number of players that might have caught your eye.
I really like Joey McAnuff. Obviously, it's maybe an obvious pick in the sense that it's someone who's played in the Premier League and played at a much higher level, and internationally as well. But I think just the attitude he's shown as captain of Leyton Orient, I think often maybe when players sort of slide down the divisions, the hunger's perhaps not so much there, but that's definitely not the case with him. He's model professional, I think, and has really been sort of Justin Edinburgh's right-hand man in the dressing room, looked after the dressing room for him. But I think there's a few from that Orient side, like Josh Coulson, who's had a really good season at centre-back. Craig Clay, who's been getting rave reviews as well. But no, McAnuff's the one that I've seen on a consistent basis perform and on the big occasion rise to it.
to have someone like him in your side is a massive bonus, isn't it? I mean, I've been reading in the local paper in recent weeks about how he's, trying to influence the dressing room, and you're right, he's, as soon as you step over that white line, Justin's job has now been handed over to the baton's been handed over to him, and to have him out there is a massive plus for them, isn't it?
And for the younger players that they've got in that team, like Dan Happy, who sort of came into it as centre back, Marvin Ekpiet, to sort of have someone like that who's actually sort of setting an example as well as to how things should be done and how to conduct yourself. I think it's great to have. And they might not realise it now, but they've probably learnt so much from not only him, but obviously this season and under Justin.
And you've mentioned Justin Edinburgh's name there. I'm sure he'll be highly touted to get the Manager of the Year. But in that division that's so competitive, someone to pick out who made the switch halfway through the season, Andy Hessenthaler down at Dover Athletic. They now finished closer to the playoffs than the relegation and managing a setup going from part-time to full-time. Are there characters like him and any other managers that you think deserve a pat on the back for their efforts?
Well, in the National League, I mean, Flowers obviously must come out with amazing amount of credit for what he's achieved there. I mean, I don't really particularly know what their financial situation is down there. You read some people saying they got a lot of backing, so don't think that they shouldn't be where they are. But they were a team last year that that were in free fall and very similar to what Andy's done. He's literally turned that club round within a short period of time. So for me, I think what he's achieved has been fantastic.
And with Gary Hill at Ebbsfleet, that's another one with all their off-the-field turmoil, managing that team. They went on a great run of form and just missing out on the playoffs in the end. Yeah,
he really turned things around when he came in. Obviously, they were at the sort of bottom half of the table when Darren McMahon left. And such an experienced manager, Gary Hill, who sort of knows what he wants. And like you said, he had to move players out because of the situation outside. And I think in the end, probably over the last sort of month or so, that situation with them not getting paid hindered them on the pitch, I think. As for other managers, I think Ben Clark at Gateshead and obviously Steve Watson, who was there before him, it's a very similar situation to Ebbsfleet. He's done a really good job there. They were in the playoff race up until the last few weeks. And also Simon Weaver at Harrogate as well, promoted from National League North. He kept a lot of the same squad from last year, showed faith in those players, added a few, but they've been really consistent. I think they've only fallen out of the top 7 for about 2 weeks in the season. So there's a lot of managers who have done a really good job, and you sort of hope that it'll get recognised in the Football League maybe, and maybe they'll get a chance to prove themselves in League 2, because you don't often sort of see League 2 clubs coming in for National League managers unless they get promoted up there. So
it worked. Certainly worked for Lincoln City, didn't it, with the Cowleys? Yeah. So perhaps they should look at that model to do so.
I'm sure we're going to see plenty of comings and goings over our summer break
for
sure.
Right.
So we'll be having them to discuss. And if we turn our attentions to the North and South divisions, Torquay and Stockport will be joining the National League next season.
Well, yeah.
And Jim, what do you think will be required? It'll be a busy season for both clubs. Can you kind of describe the magnitude of that difference for those teams promoted into that league?
Yeah, I mean, the difference I think with both those clubs is that they've played higher. So they're accustomed to football league, standard football. But it's different as much as they've had to rebuild the whole model again. And like I said about Leyton Orient, I'm thrilled that those two have gone up automatically. Huge clubs, as you saw in the attendances they've been recently getting. And for me, it should be about consolidation next year. Don't expect too much, but depending on the level of finance that's thrown at it, who knows? They may well be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, we were talking about crowds as well. 2 great additions to have in the National League. They've been getting thousands sort of every week. I do think they'll be fine in the National League. I think looking at it, obviously Gary Johnson's won that division twice. You probably couldn't really have a better manager to be going into it. And speaking to him a couple of weeks ago after they won promotion, he said, we'll be competitive. And I think maybe he was sort of downplaying it a little bit, because I think they might have a real good go. And the Stockport, Jim Gannon, obviously, another really experienced manager and someone who I think has earned a lot of respect probably from that group of players, and I think he'll stand by them and give them a good shot next year.
And looking at those playoff contests as well, if we head to the South Division, who would you pick out as the playoff battles? Who do you think is going to push ahead?
Do you know, again, talking about playoffs, I think that any one of those that are in it could win it. I mean, you know, I think we're going to discuss Concord Rangers a little bit later on, but you know, if they were in the playoffs, I actually a few weeks back would have said, you know what, I'd fancy them to go close because they had the momentum, they have a never say die attitude. But I mean, I'd like to see Woking go up because again, they're a big club. You know, they've got plans, great aspiration for new ground, I think, to come into play soon as well. But their form at the moment isn't brilliant. But you know, with Alan Dowson at the helm, I think I'll go with Woking.
Dave, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think the winner will come out of that second or third place. But then again, like as we sort of say, it's so difficult to choose really, because you can make a case for Bath, who won at Woking this season as well, and even Wealdstone have beaten Woking twice this year. Chelmsford, you kind of think that eventually they're going to go up through the playoffs after all the near misses that they've had over the years. I think the final will be between Woking and Welling.
It's funny because before the show went on air, I said to you, I fancy Welling, didn't I? And
Yeah.
then when you asked me the question, I thought, you know what? Actually, no, I'm going to go with Woking.
I think the final will be between those two. It's difficult to call it.
Playoffs are just such a leveller, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you can talk about momentum and form, but ultimately, like we were just mentioning earlier, it's
over
the calm,
one game
cool
as well.
heads.
Over one game as well. You know, two-legged ties have obviously been thrown out for a little while. So it's just sort of whoever plays better on the day, really. And as we saw last year with Braintree going up, they sort of did it the hard way, playing all their games away from home. You know, that just sort of goes to show that anything can happen on the day. And you know, if you have that little bit of luck as well, then.
Do you think it makes it more exciting removing the two legs and just kind of literally piling it all into that 90 minutes and potentially extra time and penalties?
For me, definitely. I think it's fantastic. And quite rightly, the team that finished the highest gets the home advantage. So it's a slight reward for the, you know, all of the points you've accumulated over the season. So the one-off game for me, it's like a cup final, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely so. And then if we look to the north, who would you be picking up there? Chorley had a fantastic season. Would they be your favourite?
Perhaps. I think obviously that near miss of hitting the title, it depends how they recover from that.
2 points, was it?
And obviously they were in it till the final day, and you probably think, I don't know, I think it's always difficult to sort of recover and change your mindset, I think, for the playoffs. I've always liked Brackley. Last season they lost in the playoff final and obviously won the FA Trophy. Kevin Wilkin has done a really good job there, and they've sort of kept
some exceptional players there.
Yeah, kept their core of the team that they've had there for a little while now as well. And you kind of just feel there on a sort of big occasion that they could produce something. Again, it's really tough to all, like teams like Altrincham, who are, free scoring. Bradford Park Avenue have been up there. Spennymoor as well, who perhaps you wouldn't have said before the season would be in that position. Again, it's tough to call. I think it's second or third place, I think, will win it. So, Chorley or Brackley for me.
And before the weekend, one of the breaking stories in non-league football was the news about Concord Rangers. So they've put in all the hard work to get a playoff space, but unfortunately won't be able to participate due to ground grading regulations, which have been known about for a long time. It's a bit of an odd story, David. How did you kind of come about finding out about it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise seeing it when the news broke. I do think that the club would have known about this, and they had said that they were planning to have the seats in their ground for the last sort of couple of years. Obviously, from a manager's point of view, Jim, I think you'll come onto it saying, I was obviously gutting for the players and the great work that Sammy Moore's done there, because they also had the point deduction as
3
well,
points,
which you think, and in the end they sort of were comfortably inside the playoff spot. It's a tough one, but I think rules are rules, and ground grading standards are in there to improve non-league so that clubs aren't just spending money on their team. They're improving facilities not only for their players to enjoy, but also for fans coming in as well. So for me, there's obviously the timing probably stung with how late in the season it was. I mean, Jim, I know you were talking earlier about whether they should have done it sort of end of March when the ground grading.
Yeah, I just think
comes
that I'm not privy to all of the correspondence that's gone on between the club and the league, etc. at this present time. But I just think that to tell Concord, a week before, in fact, I think it might have been on the Tuesday night or Monday this week, that they won't be allowed to participate in the playoffs is pretty poor from the league, if I'm being honest. And they could have done that March the 31st. They could have said to them that you won't be in the playoffs if you make it, and at least then you would have known. But hats off to Concord. Like I said earlier, they've got this never say die attitude. They're a club, and I'm sure they won't mind me saying that, are probably punching above their weight, certainly with the finances off the pitch, etc. But the club is growing and growing and growing from a side that's playing the Essex Senior League to where they are now, and I do feel sorry for Sammy and Jack and everyone and the chairman, because they had a great opportunity, I think, to have gone up.
And really bitterly disappointing news, like you say, for the management, players and supporters. What's your take on that space being taken away from any club? Do you feel like the opportunity should have been presented to those that fell short of the playoff place, or is the league's stance correct that we simply remove that space? It's gone. And it becomes
well, I think to say again, it's hand in hand. I think the league, if they'd have said it earlier, then they could have actually put something in place. But my point is, I think my opinion should be that it should have gone to the side that finished below Concord. I don't know whether that would have been Billericay or whoever it's going to be, but that's my personal opinion. I think you might have a different one.
Yeah, no, I think because what they've done is put fourth straight into the semi-final, and I think it's better to reward a team that's finished higher up, because a couple of seasons ago, when it wasn't the second place to seventh place playoff, and it was just the standard second to fifth, you had the situation where Poole, their ground wasn't up to scratch for the playoffs, and then the National League went to the sixth place, which was Hungerford, but their ground also wasn't, so it ended up being Hampton that was seventh.
Yeah.
And at the time, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, how's this right that the seventh place team could end up winning promotion, having finished a number of points?"
Was it Braintree?
Behind.
Went to Braintree, beat Hampton. Was that the one? Or
yeah, I'm not sure, but this thing is, it's sort of rewarding a team that's finished higher up, and I know that with this new playoff system, with the two added teams that we've seen over the last couple of years, people have said, well, again, it shouldn't be seventh or sixth place, it should just be.
I agree on that one.
Like we saw
with
Braintree last year. So then maybe if you were putting eighth place in, then is that quite right to fourth? So yeah, to be honest, I think I like the way that fourth have been rewarded for finishing higher. I'm not sure about.
I think it's probably one of those topics that would divide a lot of football fans. If you're a Billericay fan, of course, you'll probably have very strong opinions. We'll take a quick pause there and join us again very soon. And we've discussed the National League comprehensively there. Let's turn our attentions to the Bostik League. Dorking won the title a number of weeks ago now, but another cracking playoff contest should be ensuing. I'm going to ask you guys again for your predictions. Who do you think is going to get to that final?
Do you want me going first in this one? I just want to say it's quite interesting that the top three sides in that league all have the 4G, 3G, 4G. So it certainly worked in favour of those sides. So I'm actually going to plump for Carshalton. I think their form is excellent, a little bit better at the moment than Haringey's. I also think Haringey have got a very tough game against Tunbridge as well, which they may or may not get through. But Carshalton, for me, they're the form side. They'll have a home tie if they get through to the final. I think that will be enough for them to see them through.
Yeah, I've probably been a little bit disappointed with the way Haringey have sort of dropped off because they finished third in the end, which was maybe a bit of a surprise to having been up there and sort of challenging Dorking for most of the season. I think I sort of have to agree with Jim really in terms of the form going into it. I think that does have an effect, particularly in the playoffs. And I do like Carshalton. I think Tunbridge as well will have a good go. But yeah, I think I've got to agree with
all,
Jimmy.
all four of those clubs. I mean, all four of those clubs, really, realistically, budget-wise, again, they probably shouldn't be there. So they've had a magnificent season. All four of those. You know, Tom has been ill recently, so you know, I'm chuffering that he's in the playoffs. Steve McKimm's had a tough period over Christmas, but stuck at it and has a great run of form leading into it. And I'm so pleased for Tunbridge and Hayden. And Peter is obviously for both Merstham and Carshalton, two good managers. So for me, any of those that go up, I'll be delighted for them.
It seems to me within the Bostik League, a key trait to get in those playoff places is resilience. Like you were alluding to there, each of those teams have had their tricky periods in the season but got through it. Carshalton we've seen a number of times this season, so we went and saw them at Barnet. Would it be fair to describe them almost as a bit of a dark horse? They've kind of galloped into these playoffs almost kind of on the outwards, and now obviously, like you say, are in prime position to maybe go all the way and get that promotion. Yeah,
I think that they have been, and I think the majority of people that follow the Bostik Premier League would probably say, you know, they didn't see that one coming. But we saw them at Barnet, and we saw how good they were, how professional they were on the night. It's a fantastic management team down there, and he's got a young squad of players who, like I say, they've got a very good chance of winning it. But you're right, I think that they're the surprise package out of all those four.
And the Bostik League are dispatched in the back of the net cameras to go and cover that game on Monday, and the scenes of Dulwich Hamlet winning the playoff promotion. I mean, for any football fan that's got a game to go and see on Monday, it will be a great advert for Bostik League football, won't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's always, I quite like the way the Bostik League spread their fixtures out across the weekend, which means people can go and see it over the few days. But like you say, yeah, memories of that final last year and the scenes there for Dulwich. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a great occasion again. It's always great the playoffs. I think it is a great system. I think you do hear people saying about first and second should be promoted automatically, but I think opening it up to the rest of the league through the playoffs, it keeps teams interested. We've spoken about the 6th and 7th place, although maybe people don't agree with whether those teams should go up, but it does keep the interest going throughout the season, and really looking forward to the next few weeks and seeing what's going to happen.
Jim, in your opinion as a manager, champions or is getting promoted through the playoffs, is that the best way to do it?
Champions.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You can get your plimsolls on or your flip flops and just relax. Can't you? You can go and watch these games and enjoy it, because the playoff final, like I said, I've lost 5. It's not a good place to be if you're the loser, and obviously it's a euphoric feeling if you win it. But no, you've got to go up as champions, haven't you?
I'm sure there's players and managers already dreaming of celebrations at Dulwich, and I'm sure we're going to see some amazing scenes over that weekend coming up. So I'm looking forward to watching it all alongside you. Thank you very much for joining us this week. That's all we have time for this week's non-league debate. Don't forget, you can join our discussions. Let us know what you think and who you think will be promoted. But in the meantime, see you soon.